We're back. I'm back. You're back.
I think I'm back.
I've been here. It's been 6 weeks. Lot to talk about. We're going to be very quick fire on news today. Interesting things from Nvidia all the way through to OpenAI and the big one, Manus.
Yep. Manus and all of the things that it is built on, because it's built on open source tools, and we're going to dive into something called Cline, which I am inclined to show, and you'll see that in the show.
And I'm pretty excited for what it's going to give us at the end of that. So let's get into it.
See you there. Showing on the screen. I know.
You have written in my notes.
In the past.
Capital writing.
Sinclair!
We are. I'm back. It's been like 2 months.
The Douglas Renham of my life is Chris.
Douglas Renham.
No, I'm joking. Chris is awesome. It's been a few weeks. When was the last time we were together?
I would have been about 6 weeks ago, I think now.
Jesus, why?
I was in Malaysia.
I've done 2 episodes on my own.
Yeah, you have. I was in Malaysia for 3.
This
which was a
guy
great trip.
just thinks he can walk back in my life.
Just so my wife is
My wife is my life.
family is Malaysian background, and they
My missus is Malaysian too.
well
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Well, we should have like a
Some laksa.
holiday.
Yeah.
Well,
We're not going to babysit Lana.
Or
Maybe we will.
Speaking of laksa, we went to Penang, which is the
Penang.
heart, soul of the food in Malaysia.
Oh, yeah.
Also,
How much AI is going on over there?
I mean, I would say like if you walk around the main city of KL, there's a lot of technical advancements that Australia just couldn't even comprehend implementing.
What do you mean?
Oh, just like giant screens and
Yeah. Oh no, you can't put that there. That's heritage listed. You can't put that there.
Don't even get me started on that. But the key difference that the things I love about Australia versus Malaysia, and really the things I love about Malaysia versus Australia, is in Malaysia you have, it doesn't matter to an extent where you are on the sort of your income streams within the country, there is something for you to be able to eat.
Oh.
There are
Yeah.
levels of income, which you don't get here as much.
You get fast food.
You can get fast food, but like you couldn't eat here for $1.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Whereas you can eat there for $1. If all you have to your name is $1, there's food for you somewhere.
That's it.
And you don't get that here.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was pretty cool. And that food is delicious. It's not healthy, but it's delicious. It's good. You know, the hawker foods, this food on the street, it's good food.
Not hawk tour, hawker.
Not
hawker
Don't
food.
confuse with hawk tour. Not the hawk tour food. And that which I love. And the food is delicious, and especially in Penang, it's absolutely amazing. And then, but on the flip side of things, where our advancements lie, or in the Western world in general, is like there's the uptake of electric cars or electric, and that just doesn't exist. Their whole world is
motorized
vehicles, and everyone uses vehicles to get around. It's like the lifestyle is you get in a car and you.
So they're not burning down Teslas like we see overseas in Europe and the US.
I mean, some people have, but they're not like.
Not here, luckily.
No, well, you walk outside here and probably see a Tesla every 20th car or something.
Yeah.
I don't.
BYD, all those guys.
I think I saw one when I went into a hotel or something.
Wow. It was just always staying there.
Yeah, it was just living there. That's it. It moved.
Fighting out.
It was trying to escape. It probably drove all the way from United States because it was
Tesla formers.
to it.
It's a Tesla former.
Tesla former, robot.
No ideas, Elon.
In disguise.
All right, let's get into it. There's been a whole lot happening. We've both been, here, there, everywhere, away. I was at the F1s last week. It was all blockchain week for me, and we'll dive into the blockchain stuff later, but it was policy week, which is really important because bringing a whole lot of international and Australian delegates together, people that work in the space, the lawyers, the developers, the builders, policymakers, very important. And today the government
and the candlestick
makers have come out with what their plan, because we've got an election coming up. They've come out with what their plan is to regulate and do stuff for the industry. So very important read. I'll deep dive into that with AI later, obviously. But yeah, just been very blockchain for me the last week. Back to the AI stuff this week, and we'll dive into the tools. Hey, what's the matter with your hey, Manus? That's what's the matter.
Manus.
Oh, actually, no, we're not going to dive into Manus yet.
Well, we can high level. We'll talk about like some of the new things that have happened over the last couple of weeks. Obviously we didn't have a show last week, so there's a bit of a stretch here. We're going to limit what we talk about in this session now because we're going to dive into some more practical consulting stuff, which is, what's been happening in the world of corporations, businesses.
Stay tuned for the second half.
Even ourselves as consultants and freelancers, what are we seeing and what are we doing in that space? So Manus has been, a bit of an interesting thing that has occurred over the last week. It's still in its sort of very beta. You have to apply for access. I managed to get access, and even then it was still
I don't have access yet,
just
but that's
executing a query in it is like, obviously they're inundated with people trying to test it out. But it's been very cool. I don't know if I'll pop it up here.
Go ahead.
So we got Manus here. So I've run a query. I'm not going to show the query off, but this is Manus. Essentially, it's got, the basic LLM structures that we're seeing with all of them. You run a query and it does sort of like this agent deep dive into whatever the query is, whether you're creating something, researching something, building something. It is an agent that pulls from different sources. And we'll touch on what makes it so different.
Why is this different from the other AIs out there? Why is Manus such a special thing? We'll dive into that.
Number 2 on the roadmap, in terms of things that are happening, OpenAI has launched some new agent. Well, they've been talking a lot about some new agent features. And so what they've actually released, this is accessible to people who are developers. And they're able to access a whole bunch of new APIs leading into this agentic space that OpenAI is driving themselves into. As we've talked about previously, they're going to be launching their $2,000 up to $20,000 agent packages.
I know, it's crazy.
And this is kind of leading into that world where what are the things that people can create and do. So some really interesting things. I'm not going to talk about them all.
Sure.
Dive in, have a look. It's all available on the OpenAI website.
Well, that's the thing. Like, okay, they got this $20,000 model researcher and, different like levels of capabilities that it's got. But it's like, and when Manus came out after, it's like, oh, hang on, do we even need that? It's like China and the East attacking the West again. Going, you've got a release? Hang on, hold my beer.
Hold my beer. Here's something. Here's something I prepared earlier.
Exactly.
So it is interesting that they're doing this. It's kind of them. Maybe it is them realizing, but when maybe these $2,000, $20,000 packages aren't going to be good, why don't we release all these APIs for developers to play with and actually start building stuff. Which is an interesting play, and it's something, again, when we'll talk about Manus, we'll touch on this world that exists beyond, the OpenAIs and Claudes that are happening, that are releasing all these products. What's the next iteration of that?
And speaking of like the OpenAI stuff, the fact that they've gone to the US, like Congress and Senate and stuff, and asking for Chinese models to be banned. Like closing the door behind them. OpenAI, trying to close AI in a certain respect. So it's interesting what's going on there. Hopefully it just means better things for consumers. We'll see, but it doesn't sound great, doing that kind of stuff. Anyway, continue.
Good old Grok, which this is what I find really interesting. Grok is Mr. Musk's AI startup. They have integrated themselves into another Musk's owned business into X, so you can actually query any kind of chat, any kind of tools within X now. So you can go at Grok, talk to this, and Grok can respond in X for you, which is
as like another person or something. I've seen people do it, and it hasn't always answered.
No, it's very rough at the moment, and I haven't tested myself, but I've seen online a lot of people testing it.
I've seen people go at Grok, explain this.
And it's
try to explain the tweet, and it hasn't. But sometimes it has.
Sometimes it has. So it's very hit and miss, like a lot of new tools and integrations. I think Grok is still in a very infant stage compared to a lot of the other tools. It is one of the youngest ones out there.
It's a baby.
But like Elon Musk loves to do, test, learn, implement, move on. One of my favorite things that happened in the last week is good old Bolt.
My favorite.
And I wouldn't say I'm a heavy user. I'm a user, but Mark is a massive user of Bolt.
I have
some
spent
awesome tools.
A lot of money on Bolt because it's been worth it. It's been worth it. Spending the money on tokens, and sure, you can do a lot of stuff with Cursor, but Bolt just packages it all together nice. That like within very few amount of time, very great English there. We'll use AI to fix that up. Within a limited amount of time, you can actually get something up and working and prototyped or even in production, like pretty damn quickly. What have you seen on Bolt?
Well, my favorite thing that they've implemented, and look, it's a hit and miss still, as we've talked about, but they've now got Figma importation.
Figma.
So what you can actually do if you're a heavy Figma user, which I am a very, very heavy Figma user for a lot of the project work that I involve myself with, and I use a little bit of the AI tools within Figma, but they're still, again, very infant or very hit and miss. But what you can do now is you can take the links for particular pages or particular assets you've created, link that into your Bolt tool, which you can see here. If I click on this, it comes up with a link to be able to, it's going to make me sign in. Apologies, I don't have my Figma linked up here because I'm on a different computer. But you can then drop your Figma link in there. It imports the images and then tries to recreate the prototype that you've built. So that really nice way for you to take that jump from your design straight into a coded build for you to then push into a GitHub or some other repository.
There's videos on this.
Or to adjust and edit and build. And there's heaps of
We could probably show like a video playing in the background.
Yeah,
I'll look at this
as I'm talking. But that was really exciting. Just because I'm a Figma user, and I've always gone, I want this to be hooked into Bolt because I also enjoy Bolt more than things like VO and all these other tools which are out there who don't have yet Figma implementation. But I can't imagine it'd be very hard for them to take that step and that leap. So that was very coming
for sure. For sure. I mean, it was a big announcement for them and stuff, and definitely opens up more doors for people that just want an easier way to do stuff. Like it takes out a lot of the heavy lifting and stuff, especially for building apps and websites, which is what I primarily use, Bolt for.
Exactly. And even for me, it's that prototyping world where you're stepping now from building your prototypes in something like Figma to jumping straight to almost an MVP in Bolt, albeit you're not connecting to your cloud-based services and other third-party applications that may be helping to drive these things forward. But it's that shortcut to MVP, which we're seeing more and more with these tools that are coming out, which I fucking love.
Great.
Mistral 3.1. This
there?
is interesting. Talking to our open source players and our open source world here. We've got the DeepSeeks out there and more that are coming out. Big players in that space. Mistral has one. They hit home initially with their language models, with their talking. And they've just made an update to 3.1, which is a sort of a mini model which competes with like the 3.0s and stuff the 4.0 mini, the 3.4 haikus, and is it Gemini 3 mini? Is that what it's called? I don't know, the other mini models out there. So there's a lot of so what we're seeing here is, while it's not very good at things like maths, it's really competitive in the world of just like the basic language model response in terms of its rapid response, accuracy of response, and answering questions in query. So one to check out there if you're an open source player, as it's really stepping up and competing against those other big players. Like, I would almost say, from an open source perspective, if you're using mini models, why would you use OpenAI or Claude? You'd jump to something like this that's free, using Mistral or even DeepSeek and the ones out there. So really interesting launch there, as they're becoming even bigger and bigger competitors to the other people out there. Our friends over from France, I think Mistral's from.
I think they're from France.
Very nice.
En français.
En français. That's the kind of the big news items. There's one little thing that I wanted to show, which I thought was more of a fun thing. Nvidia I think it was last week even, did a big presentation around
it's Wally.
Around all the things that they are looking to launch out there in the big wide world.
Guys, it's Wally.
AI overlords take over more and more. They have some huge news around chip launches, huge news around AI tools that are becoming more and more available for developers. But one of the things that I found most intriguing or most exciting and kind of cool is they did this partnership with Disney to create a robot that was able to interact with you in real time. Nothing advanced like like all the ones that we're seeing from Tesla and
or is it like Rick and Morty, where the butter machine goes, "What is my purpose? You serve butter." Oh my god. Like, because it realized that's all it's ever gonna do.
And
but it's not like that. Like,
it kind of is.
Okay.
But if you're a Star Wars fan, and
like BB-8 and R2-D2 and all that,
exactly, kind of fits firmly into that type of character.
Let's have a look.
Hey, Blue. How are you doing? How do you like your new physics engine? You like it, huh? Yeah, I bet. I know. Tactile feedback, rigid body, soft body simulation, super real time. Can you imagine just now what you were looking at is complete real-time simulation? This is how we're going to train robots in the future. Just so you know, Blue has 2 computers.
Walks over.
That's really cool.
There are people saying, yeah, maybe he was remote controlling it. When Tesla did their, their surprise launch last year, and talked about, obviously, there were a lot of those robots were being remote controlled. So was this doing the same?
It's a little kid inside.
I'm hoping not. I've got, Nvidia's.
I'll go host for them.
Yeah, I think they've done something really cool here, and it's just, whether this is going to be a gimmick or something that becomes commercialized, it's either going to be an awesome toy or it's going to work. Like at Disneyland, they're going to probably have actual real robots doing
exactly. There's nothing wrong with entertainment. There's nothing wrong with creativity in these kinds of things. Does not all have to be like serious.
Exactly right. So, and if anyone's seen that new horrible movie,
Wall-E,
Machine State.
Where they spent $500 million, whatever it was.
Well, this is that first step into these robots being created.
The electric state, machine state.
Is that what it's called? Whatever.
Same. Okay.
Yes, our AI machine robot overlords will growing as we speak.
Fantastic.
That's the sort of high-level news that I have. Anything you want to talk quickly?
I guess we want to dive into Manus next, and I'm going to riff off of that. So when you're ready,
dive into Manus. All right, this is excellent. All right, so good old Manus.
As you see on screen.
And
so Chris is a special one because he has access. Not many people do. There's still, I've got a tweet here where they, let me just show this just quickly. Look at this, guys. They had in 7 days, 2 million people jumped on the wait list for this. This is how much hype it's been built up.
I got access within hours. I don't know how I did it. My question, what I said to them is I'm a heavy user in the research, CX, UX, product and design space. I've got a podcast. I really would like to try the product, and I will talk about it in the podcast.
I just said that I'm better than Chris, and it didn't work. So yeah, I didn't get in early enough.
This was literally anyway, it doesn't matter. Manus. So Manus.
What is it?
Playing heavily in that agentic AI space.
Yep.
So essentially what it is doing, it is playing on the queries that you've got and querying other queries to create actions. So querying other tools to create actions and solve things. So from a research perspective, which is the world I'm doing in the UX perspective, I want to conduct a research on a particular product or a persona or a person or a business, and I want to then do a summary of that item. I then want to turn that into something I can visualize, something I can translate, and then I want to do some ideation, and then I want to create something, and then I want it to do this and that and that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've created right there, and just in what I've said, I've created almost a flow of actions. Now, our standard models, they can kind of answer those queries, but mainly just with language, right? So they're responding, they give you a big dump, and maybe they'll give you some code, but they don't give you the step-by-step flow of outcomes. They don't create websites for you or summarizations for you in different tools. Everything is kept within that single model.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what Manus is able to do, because they're using, I think, Claude 3.7 potentially, and a bunch of other third-party applications, which we'll touch on in a moment, not what they are, but why that's interesting, is able to then create these workflows based on the queries and therefore give you outputs with various actions, various solutions, and various purposes, I guess, rather than just having it all in this one LLM.
Yeah.
An example that I ended up doing here, and I created a pretty detailed query just because I wanted to actually really see what it was capable of. I'll do this in a reference of something that we're actually looking to develop ourselves. We're creating an AI tool in the virtual AI space that's helping people when they're having conversations in meetings, etc. I wanted to identify the types of personas in the sales space for people who would be potentially utilizing this. So who are these salespeople? What are they doing? What are the kind of things that they expect of doing? I want to create a customer journey for those things. I want to know what are the different steps for those different personas. So right now I've got 3 things that I've already said. I want to conduct research. I want you to shape a bunch of pseudo personas, or what I would call not virtual personas. What's the word I'm after here?
Virtual personas.
Virtual personas. Anyway, so synthetic. Thank you very much. Some synthetic personas, and then I want you to create a customer journey for those personas. So there's 3 things that I've already told it to action. But then what I want them to do is now visualize that stuff. I want you to show me how that looks like in a dashboard that I can then share, query, and do other things with. Then there's 4 steps. So there's 4 workflows that if I plug that into an LLM, it's just going to give me a bunch of words and made it a table.
Mm-hmm.
So I put that in, and Manus came up going, okay, cool. First, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, which it did. It asked some nice questions that querying that information.
Yep.
And then it went, all right, I'm executing that command. You can see here it started to create that command of what it wants to do.
Yep.
It then started to show me all of the information that it was doing, conducting research in.
Can you click on each of those like sections where it looks like it's doing an action?
Yeah, sure.
The clicking element or the creating
so creating a file here. So you can see here, it's actually
so you get to break it down.
It's actually telling you exactly the steps that it's doing.
Very cool.
In-person interactions, customer solutions, relationship.
I like this thing at the bottom as well, folks. If you can see on the bottom right, you've got like it shows you the progress, so you can replay the actions that it's talking about. It's very cool.
It is very interesting, the replay stuff, because I mean, inevitably to do this complete, which it took 3 tokens to go, 3 actions to complete the entire query that I had there. It probably took about 30 minutes for it to do the entire thing, which is it's a long time, but it was conducting a lot of research and building checking its own work.
People that have been playing around with like deep research, which is just a research tool rather than like actions.
As a user of, I love it.
It dives into so much, information there, and sure, it's okay for it to take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to do something. Yeah.
So you can see here it starts to even edit the file, so it's questioning itself on the things that it wants to do and reviewing it, which I thought was really interesting.
Stay on that. This is important, right? So if you scroll to what is on Manus's computer, you can see it's creating this to-do list.
Yep.
We'll touch on this part a little bit later because there are tools that Manus uses, and this is a really big important part of Manus we'll discuss, is that Manus it hasn't created all these new things. It's pieced together a lot of interesting things together.
Exactly what I want to touch on the third party thing, because it's relevant.
This is a quite telling part of it, because this is a key part of Manus. It's not you, the user, like you have to do with Bolt at the moment, having to control everything. If something goes wrong, sure, you can ask the AI or you know how to fix it yourself, but you're the conductor. In this case, we've got an agent that is conducting itself and tasking other agents to do stuff.
Exactly. And here's a good visualization of that action. So what it's done here, it's found a website which talks a lot to the adapting sales and modern buying behaviors. And you can see here, it's the next step after it's found this site is going clicking element. So it's started to click around the website and showing you where it found certain information.
Yeah.
Whereas our standard LLMs would literally just go, oh, this is a data dump. I'm going to try and pull that information, get rid of the stuff that I think is irrelevant, pull out the information for your
by the way,
research.
Manus is not a new LLM. It is piecing together.
No. I'm sorry. I'm referencing what LLMs do compared to what Manus has done. Its third-party tool. So Manus didn't do this. It's queried something else to do it. But that querying is the workflow. That's the agenda.
They pieced it together really well. So far, like from what we're seeing so far.
Exactly right. So it's telling you it started scrolling, and then it started searching some other elements and other tools. You can see all the websites that it started to look for information on, things that started browsing, and again, it's showing you the scrolling. So I'm not going to go through every one of these just because it'll take forever. But then it gave me, okay, it's completed its information. Here's I'm going to now do this next step for you. So I'm going to look for characteristics, detailed responsibilities, and goals. So it's going, oh, what are the things we should find for personas? And now I'm going to summarize this information for you. So it does that, summarizes all the information into a big data text. But obviously I said to it, I don't want it in a data text. I need this in kind of visualization. So I'm going to skip through all the back and forth that I had with Manus when it was asking me stuff as I was going through.
It's good that's asking.
I was like, yes, please proceed. Or yes, hey, could you do it in this way? And it then spat out a document, a report, and then it said, cool, do you want to visualize this report? And I went, yes, visualize that report. And so what it spat out, I was actually very shocked with what it gave me, just because I know other tools do this. But the thing is, it did it with me in one single experience, which is what I was really excited about. So here's the framework. It's given me a navigational structure of all the different things that it's highlighted. So the executive summary, the introduction of what it's found, the key personas that it's referenced for me. Here are all the different personas. It's interactive. I can actually click on things and it adjusts what I want to look at within that persona. So I want key features around object handling, note taking, and how it does follow up, how these people do follow up automation. And it updates that table below for me, which I'm like, this is absolutely awesome.
Nice.
I don't care about field sales. I want SMB and enterprise sales. And boom, so now I've got all that information. Here's the customer journey. It's giving me a few journeys from inside field sales, enterprise sales, and SMB sales. And it's actually mapped out for me the full journey for this particular customer. Like when I say full journey, it is high level. If I were to do this myself, it would be a little bit structured differently. But I would have all of this information sort of covered under one bucket, which I'm not complaining about. This is awesome what it's done.
To do something like this just manually, not manually. First of all, manually would be very hard.
It'd take me months.
Secondly, with stuff like Bolt, you couldn't be as in depth with the instructions and expect it to just get every single thing right. It's going to take a lot more back and forth. And this is like where you just give a big chunk of instructions, but because it's breaking down those instructions into getting different agents to do necessary things, yeah, beautiful, man.
Yeah, so I'm going to skim over the rest of it. Like it's giving me all the AI tools and integrations and things that they consider, things that I should be considering that they utilize when it comes to building things, metrics and frameworks. It's even given me, a little graph here around their adoption rates, their efficiency gains and revenue impacts based on the types of tools that they use, real world application scenarios. Like it is, and then a conclusion for me to summarize, to have a full review summary of everything I just read. So
yeah,
that's what it gave me in that one query that I've been able to utilize so far. I get a reset.
Good experience
in 24 hours.
Yep.
Or sorry, in another 12 hours, I think it is.
Yep. Okay, right.
I get three big queries.
Okay.
Every 24 hours, I think it is, because it is in its beta, in its infancy, and there you go. I can see a reset in 10 hours. I can do it again. So really awesome. That's just from a research perspective. I have another mate who's played with it. And he's been doing it from a web development perspective to see what kind of impacts that you can create, what things you can create out of that. It is still very infant. It's still hit and miss.
Yep.
I have a deep dive into a lot of the data that it's produced, but it is also synthetic information. So it still could hallucinate. It still can, those personas are based on data online. They're not based on research of talking to people and businesses. So I can trust it as far as my knowledge and treat it like it's a synthetic experience, which is something we'll talk about in a moment of the things that we're seeing within a lot of this space. So very, very cool. To put a comparison together, we built something very, very similar for a project that we're doing for N8N in N8N.
Yep.
And I just want to show you. I'm not going to talk too much about N8N, but N8N is essentially our workflow / agent.
Yeah.
Mainly, I would mainly say
agent maker.
Workflows, but you can build agents using N8N.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a big sort of setup of what we would almost what you could do is like a mini design sprint. In the click of a query, in the typing of a query. So where we want you to build some personas, we want you to create some synthetic personas of that, we want you to conduct an ideation session with those personas to create some ideas around what a solution could look like. And then we want you to take those ideas and create a rapid prototype. That's essentially the 3 steps that we've got here. Then take the personas that you developed in step 1, take the prototype that you've created and run a scenario to validate that prototype. That's literally what this big trail of data is doing there. And to an extent, it's what I've asked Manus to do. Now in Manus, I've been able to do it in one experience. And as you can see here from an agentic perspective, how complex that looks like if we were to build that ourselves manually. So the reason I wanted to highlight that is because I wanted to touch on what Manus is actually doing, and you highlighted before, which is the third-party stuff. Third-party stuff. It's exactly like this. And that's the world I think we're moving into beyond what's happening right now. And if we talked about it from OpenAI's perspective, OpenAI has releasing their APIs for agent creation. And again, so that is talking to the idea that you are a business creating agents with third-party tools. And what we're going to see, I think, more and more is like tools like Manus coming out, utilizing these third-party tools to create solutions for businesses. So businesses aren't having to build them for themselves. It's kind of what I'm doing with one of my businesses I'm creating. We're using third-party tools to solve a specific problem. We tailor, you edit, you adjust things accordingly that the tools don't do themselves. But essentially, we're using third-party AI solutions to create new solutions that they originally couldn't solve themselves.
Very cool.
I think that's the world we're moving to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting with regards to what you've got there for Manus. What was most interesting for me is that with Manus, there's people think that, it's like all the new things that have come out, it's either a new language model or it's like a new way of, a new voice tool or a new image tool or like a new thinking model, reasoning. Like we had that with deep research,
Yes.
and DeepSeek and all that kind of stuff that everyone's like now trying to follow. But the thing that was really interesting about Manus is they didn't invent anything new.
No, not at all.
It's nothing new. They've just pieced things together that already exist. And so what I wanted to show you guys, like, and highlighting what Chris had on screen before with the orchestrator, like going, here are the tasks and stuff that you want it to do. Here I am in something called Visual Studio Code. It's what a lot of developers will use to build things. I don't know if I can increase the size here. So I've got this instruction. This is taken from a video that I'd seen someone else do, up and coming channel, and showing how you've got a tool called Cline, C-L-I-N-E. Cline is an open source orchestrator tool for agents. Cline is what Manus looks like they're using, and you'll see it because the instructions where it's got, here is the breakdown of the work, looks exactly the same here. So I've got a long list of instructions here. I've got a prompt. So I am in Cline right now. So inside of Cline, I'm saying we're working on a new project. I've opened up the new project. There's no files in here. Like, it is literally blank. The only thing that's in this file is the instructions. So it's only that one file for the instructions. I've got my prompt here saying we've got this crypto test project. Read the project, start the prompt file, complete the project. Don't stop until it's done. I want to have a functional UI and app. Put it on localhost 3006. I'm on Windows PowerShell, so don't use these symbols and stuff, because if you're working with Apple, it's different on Macs. So I'm going to start that. It's going to use Claude 3.7 to do this stuff. You see at the top here some things that it is doing. It's going to start using tokens. It's going to give you a cost that it is racking up as it is building something. At the same time that I'm doing that, I'm going to have that same prompt, just the first part of it. I'm going to get Bolt to do it here. And I had a video on this like earlier in the week, but you can check that out on LinkedIn. But you can see here that Bolt will do something the same. Basically, the task for the app is to go and take APIs from Gemini for Bitcoin pricing, take it from Coinbase for Bitcoin pricing, create an app that actually showcases both of these. Now, the interesting thing is that Bolt, as you were showing before, and as I do a lot of building with, Bolt is really interesting because you have all of these tools put in front of you and you can command it to do, okay, build this app. And if it's simple enough, like I've got here, there's not too much complexity to it. I didn't say how to make it look, how to make it have multiple pages and stuff like that. It's got a few pages here, but I don't go too complex with it, because if you give too much instructions to something that does not have orchestration in it, and when I mean orchestration, like an AI agent that's directing other agents to do things, you're going to have a hit and miss experience when it comes to Bolt. This one's just simple, so Bolt will build something in a few seconds, but I have to keep on going back and forth with it. What you're seeing on screen here, Manus is now, it's already done the first few tasks. It's doing that thing where, let's have a look at this. So that's Manus. We'll talk about the other things that are out there, not just Manus. There's
Cline?
Oh, yes. I am talking about Cline. Whoa, folks. Well, the interesting thing is that Cline uses Manus, and I'm trying to find that file. So this checklist, so it's doing other work in the background, but what you see on screen here, this checklist, is exactly the same checklist that you see in Manus, because Manus is using
the same tool to do the
and it's got other tools like web search. It's got other tools like, connect to this, do that. And there is something that we'll dive into another time called MCPs, Model Context Protocol. That's for another episode and stuff. But it's a powerful thing that you've got in Cline, and you've also got in Manus as well, that is just a better way to connect to systems. But look, this is going to take some time to build. We'll come back to it. We're not just going to watch this, but the agents are basically going back and forth and checking, okay, I've done this part now. Do I need to get another agent to do something else? Yes, no. And even when the agents get stuck, they correct themselves. So I don't have a replay feature here. I don't have all the niceties that Manus provide in the UX, but the raw, if you want to not have to wait to sign up to Manus, but you want that Manus type experience, Cline has been out for a little while, but what's really a lesson here is that Cline was first, but it just took someone like Manus, the group that is behind Manus, to build something and hype it up and showcase the power. And they don't deny, they're not trying to hide that they're using open source tools. They said, because
you can easily Google it.
Yeah, you can Google it, and someone used Manus to discover what Manus is using. They just asked Manus, like, what are the tools that you're using? And it goes, I am built on 29 different open source and other tools.
Yep.
And it told them what those were. So whilst this continues to build, here is what on screen.
Tools, including a browser search engine, file editor, terminal, and 1,000 community-built agents.
Amazing, right? Here is what Thingy has come up with. Thingy, my favorite Thingy tool, being Bolt. So let's see if it's worked. Okay, that's not bad. These look like proper prices on Coinbase and Gemini, and we can confirm that because I've got another one here where I've gone back and forth with Bolt to make this one look a little bit better and just prettifying it, you know, like adding a few extra things to it. And the price is about 84,000 in terms of Bitcoin. There's a $9 arbitrage there if you can actually get in quick enough, but you will not be able to with just normal computers, between Gemini's price and Coinbase. And this refreshes like every 10 seconds or so. There you go. I haven't put in like the part that you need to be able to just refresh on different pages. But if we refresh it again, you'll be able to see, okay, it was 84, now it's 84,347. It's down to a $2 arbitrage. But that refreshes every 10 seconds. So it worked fine. Bolt can do that kind of stuff. Manus is still taking more time, but it's better because it's in depth in a way. And maybe you only need Bolt to do stuff, but with Manus, it's more in depth. Cline, I know, I'm inclined to say Manus. Same thing, guys. In Cline, it is, and this is the open source thing. I've not paid for this. I'm just using the open source tools. I pay for the tokens. I'm using Anthropic.
Yep.
There's other tokens you could make this connect to, because you can choose when you set it up here to OpenAI. There's a system called, or a SaaS product called Open Router, which has better deals in some way. I think they've been cheaper, so I'm going to have a look into that. You can connect it to Gemini as well. And you can, there's choices there in what you've got. But whilst it's similar to Manus, at the end of all of this, when it does build the app, I can run it in my local computer. To deploy it, I'd have to push it up to GitHub or to StackBlitz or one of those other kind of tools out there to have this run.
I mean, you can do it with VO, but you could even put locally on your computer and then use any kind of key that you want.
Here's something interesting. So it gets to parts where it basically goes, okay, I've given it permissions to do some things, certain other commands, because maybe it needs to install something or whatever. I say, you've got to ask me. And there's also, you can set a limit on how many of those sensitive permissions it is allowed to do. I've set it to 20, but if you set it to 1,000, you could literally go to sleep, wake up the next day, and hopefully it hasn't spent all your money. It spent
how much money?
I know. It spent 50 cents so far. I've done this before, and it spent about $2 to build a better version of what you see here. And when I say better in a way because you own it, you can control it, you can deploy it wherever. All of this right now, this is sitting on Netlify, which is what StackBlitz and Bolt use to showcase their apps. And you can move them around, you can download it. But the other thing that's really great is that with Cline, and probably Manus as well, because it's using the same kind of thing, I'm in VS Code. If you've got existing, and this is for my devs out there, if you've got existing work that you built, old apps, current apps that you're working on, I'm in the plan mode, right? Sorry, I'm in the act mode right now. If I went to plan, I could get it to read a folder, and you can't do this with other tools as easily. I can get it to read all of my files. Right now, with VS Code and just using OpenAI just natively in VS Code, you have to tell it which files it can look at. And sure, you could probably give maybe all of it, but it's going to be a bit harder. But with Manus or Cline, as we're in here, you can actually just get it to read everything that's in that folder that you're working on, get it to understand it first, see what it's all about, and then instruct it to do stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting stuff that's being seen there.
Looking at Cline and what you've done within Bolt, I love representing the key difference of the audiences that the two tools are actually targeting.
That's it. Yeah.
So from a Cline perspective, I think it's incredibly advanced. But you're looking at a user who also technically needs to be a little bit more advanced in terms of what they do with the information that it spits out.
Yeah.
Whereas, which means it has the flexibility to provide probably a bit more of a richer output, but you will need to be able to interact with other tools to make it to get that outcome that you want to get.
Exactly.
Which is what you've done with having to plug a lot of that insight into Bolt. From a Manus perspective, it's targeting that that lower down the chain user who's not quite as advanced. They need a little bit of guidance and probably a cleaner user experience in order to understand what's going on. The general person working at a desk in an office, or even myself, where I'm trying to do things really quickly between the tools when I'm solving custom problems. I only need to go to one tool to get the outcome.
That's the advantage I see with.
There's a higher risk of hallucinations or errors, and the data might not be as rich because it's had to create a few shortcuts, and I don't necessarily know all the tools that it's jumped through to get to that solution.
Yeah, it's been abstracted away.
Exactly right. Whereas Cline, there's a few extra steps you can take to refine that information and interrogate it, I would say, in a much easier way as well.
Agreed.
So, which I really love, and I love that contrast between all the things that are coming out. But as you
got choices.
As you were highlighting, Cline is still using a lot of third-party tools to get to that.
Manus, sorry.
No, Manus and Cline are using third-party. Cline's not using third-party stuff. The checkbox tool that you highlighted.
Oh, sorry. It's built on open source, so it is using Cline has pieced together its own things. Manus is using Cline plus other things. So they're all
using.
Nothing's built from scratch.
Yeah, that's exactly my point.
And I think
I love that because it means now we're getting to a point where we're getting all these really rich tools that you don't see with OpenAI, DeepSeek. They're just basic things that punch out information. Now we're finding ways to utilize these tools to visualize things, whether they are open source or not. And that's really exciting.
And it talks to a big point with this, and people saying, oh, Manus, when it was discovered, oh, look, we've discovered the secret. All the hype behind Manus is wrong. And it's just like, what do you mean? Just because it is using those open source tools, that's not a bad thing, right?
Great.
So the derogatory term that you often hear in this space is oh, it's just a wrapper. When ChatGPT first came out and had the APIs, and people were using the APIs to build their own version of a ChatGPT for whatever kind of purpose, adding in various extra features and going, oh, well, it's just a wrapper tool. It's not going to last. Whether it lasts or not, I think it is just still moving the space forward, because some people wanted an easier experience with ChatGPT back then, or a more local experience, having stuff that's here in Australia, for example, and it's all locally sitting in terms of the data. Manus is the same kind of thing. Just because they are using open source tools, and sure, if you're advanced, you can do something like what you're seeing here on screen. It's still doing its work. It's spent $1 so far, and it's going much more in depth than I have with Bolt. But the thing is wrappers are not a bad thing. The measure should be, is it actually useful? Is it helping you with what it is you're trying to do? Is it moving the space forward? So if it's doing something useful, I think that's powerful.
Another thing that is doing is it's opening the doors for these businesses to get their foot in to create these solutions. And it is not too long-term difficult once they unlock capital for them to suddenly deviate into their own versions of their AI tools. Just because they're using third-party stuff now doesn't mean they're going to maintain doing that in the future.
But
you need to create something somewhere. You need to start somewhere, and
where's the arbitrage right now?
Way to get there.
Yeah. What's valuable right now is, as you're saying, it might not be what's valuable in the future. But at least that you're doing something right now. It's a stepping stone. Exactly. So if right now the way that you do things to get value, the easiest way to get into a customer to show that this is actually useful and it's more efficient, or it's giving them new opportunities, if you have to go one side, then do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But just, I think the key thing is people got to be quick to adapt, expecting that this is just going to continue to be the way that it will work. Exactly. This is going to be old. Manus is definitely maybe better for the masses. Cline is better for developers and stuff right now. And as more of these tools become open source, it makes it easier for the community to build with rather than closed AI at the moment. So interesting.
I think it's great. I'm pretty excited for it. I think it's very
same.
As much as I love playing and building agents, the fact that someone has built something that just does all that agent thinking for me is great.
Final topic, I guess, and we'll dive into it. This will play in the background. I'll come back to it. But is what are you seeing in terms of AI adoption? We'd both been working in the space for a little bit, and maybe just a quick, because we've only got I don't know, don't really have a time on what we've got, but let's just say next 10, 15 minutes or so. But what are you seeing in terms of like AI adoption in enterprise?
Yeah, it's been really interesting, I think, particularly, and this is something that Australia generally is struggled with, is adoption of new technologies that propose risk against data, risk against, well, let's leave back to it, risk against either legal standpoints. I mean, I've been doing work at a couple of some fintech companies and some large, well, I wouldn't say call them enterprise, but large organizations that, that span across Australia. And their adoption for AI has actually been really, really slow. That doesn't mean that it hasn't been used, but their adversity for risk to bring these in has been interesting to an extent of surprising that they're not doing it fast enough. I look at, if I look at the big four consultancy companies, a lot of them have built their own tools and people aren't using it just because they haven't hit the mark that the tools that are out there in the world are able to provide to them, whether it's language, style, data accessibility, and then consequently, that people aren't using them at all. They don't know about them, or they're not part of their data.
You mean internally?
Yeah. Organizations. Yeah. Look at some fintech companies, and obviously there's a huge risk around data. And so because of that, they've got mandates to just not be able to use them as well. Or if they do use them, they have to be in an offline format. And so help me, if they ever, is there any ounce of data that is part of their business gets caught in it, people can get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So it's been actually quite a slow adoption for these large businesses.
There's more risk
because of the risk that is for me, there are easy ways to get around that risk, to set up, to create, so that there is no risk against the data that is being used. But the step, like them taking that leap to trust that they can do that, is it's just easy for them to say no.
Yeah. Right now, anyway.
Right now, anyway, exactly right. So that's from an enterprise level with the types of businesses that I've been dealing with. Like I've been seeing a lot of that, which I think is a bit sad, particularly in the fintech space or even any kind of financial institution. There's a lot of opportunity there from an AI perspective, and they're just not willing to take that risk at the moment.
Yeah, it's really tough because they're the ones that when you're already the big dog, the established establishment, you've got nowhere to go but down, right?
Exactly.
And everyone else is like attacking you, and they've got these new tools. And if you're not adopting stuff internally, or even just experimenting with these things and having a good understanding of when you step in, maybe you're not going to be the first. But I fear that a lot of places just don't have that, or they don't have the culture. And it's great to see some businesses and organizations, whether government or private, thinking about, well, how do we drive culture? It's not something you can just switch on straight away. Culture. Because we're in Australia, culture, Australia. So you have to have it. It's not something that is just a flick of the switch. It has to be. There's the tools. There's the way that risk is allocated. Like people could potentially develop if there's like some sort of sandbox, or it's like, hey, we'll let you develop stuff on this computer here. It's not tied to anything on the business, or we'll give you the time to do stuff. Like there needs to be more of that.
But that said, on the flip side, for the smaller businesses that I've been dealing with in startups, there's a lot of adoption and usage that I have been seeing, building of their own tools and stuff. But again, looking into that, and back on the Manus topic, using third-party APIs and other tools to build up their big ideas, which I really, really love. What about your perspective? Because there's some small crossover with the sort of industries that we work with, but significantly different types of businesses in terms of the tools, applications, and solutions that they bring to market. So what's your thoughts on the sort of AI adoption that you've been observing in that space?
Yeah, it's interesting. On the flip side, I guess it is a bit of night and day. The smaller business, and when I say small, I don't mean there's a perfect Goldilocks zone for working and consulting in the space. So in the AI space, we build products. We do a lot of consultation and stuff as well. In the blockchain world, it's more about building products, and there is a bit of consultation there, but there's far more products, and we're building there. But the consulting, or even if you are selling products, I think the key is that you need to find those businesses that are big enough to have the money to actually do something that makes sense. You know, you don't want to do something for nothing, but are small enough that they can actually make decisions a lot faster than enterprise, and small enough that they don't have as much of the risk weighing down on them, that it's like, it's too hard, guys. Like, it's too much risk. We're not going to touch AI at all.
Yeah.
I think there is that perfect kind of Goldilocks zone right now, and that will change as, you know, the technology adopts. And just like cloud, it's like, oh, we're not touching cloud. We're not going to put our data up on servers. What are you talking about? And now it's, I mean, there are some businesses that are still moving to cloud, but it's 99% of, you know, folks will be doing something with the cloud, whether it's email, etc. So I think that what we're seeing is that there's more of a keen sense of trying to adopt and test and pilot new ideas, because these businesses, they need to do that to survive. They need to test and explore and try things in a different way versus the incumbents in their industry. So it's great to see that. The problem, though, is that there's so much noise that they're getting, and like, what works, what doesn't, what do they think about things. I think people are looking for trusted sources, and there's a lot of hype about what tools do. You know, being as both you and I are really deep in the space, like when I look at some of how things work, I'm like, I can already see, oh, you're using RAG. Let's have a look at what else they do. Oh, okay, you can switch between the different models. Oh, you can upload your documents. You can do, like, you can start to see when you see someone presenting something, whether it's in healthcare or finance, etc., how they're piecing these tools together. You get to understand it a little bit, and you can read past the hype. But a lot of businesses aren't able to do that. And what ends up happening with that space is that if someone sells something as they can do, you know, it can do all these wonderful magical things, and then when the client actually tries it, it's miss. I think there needs to be a bit, what I'm saying is, I think there needs to be a bit more education about, and just, I'm not talking about tech education, but just simple explanations of, okay, when you see AI doing this, it's using these tools. RAG is good, but it's limited. Fine tuning is good, but it's limited. Like, there needs to just be better explanations. Or, you know, going back to it, like, people won't care why, how the phone works or how these tools like work. That's fine, but I think that we need to still have a breakdown of understanding, because there is no one AI tool that will just do everything really well.
Well, you don't want that. And
like,
you
don't want that,
to
right?
expand on what you like to and hone in that point.
Yeah.
The terminology around AI is so saturated by, I guess, like, you know, what's trending right now, and all of those topics focus on these LLMs and these image generators, and like that is the obvious space of AI. But actually, when you take a step back and look at what the capabilities of AI are, and it's the same thing in blockchain, right? If you look at like blockchain and crypto and NFCs, like there's this these big words that overtake what the capability of the technology actually is. And so these businesses look at blockchain, they look at AI, and they're like, oh no, I don't want LLMs on my door. I don't want image generators. Whereas SaaS business is like, that's like, you're not understanding what AI is actually capable of doing. There's this whole automation, this whole learning thing that sits behind it. And there becomes a missed opportunity for these businesses.
Yeah, it needs to be outcomes based.
Yeah, exactly right. I use an example, and I'm not going to say businesses or names, but company bringing a SaaS product to market, and
is it you?
I look at these competitors that they have, and they don't have a rich enough differentiation for their product that's going to market. And you ask them, hey, what are you thinking about the AI space? They're like, oh, we're not doing any AI. And you're like, why? Like,
why not?
Why? What? And they're just like, well, we just don't want to do that, and we don't know how to do it, or we don't want to think about that yet. I'm like, well, your competitors already have these products in the market, and I can assure you they are thinking about how they're going to get them into market. So you're going to release this new product out there, and very, very, very quickly, your competitors are going to release the next iteration of their version, where you were in a situation that you could have brought something to market now with that thought process behind it. But because it's too risk, even though you may have had 2 years to think about it, you're now going to take a step into this competition, but actually you're going to have a foot behind everyone else, because you're late to the playing field and you haven't thought about what's next.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very fast moving, you need to adapt quickly kind of world out there. But the thing is, people are able to do that. You can really quickly pick up on the skills that come with AI. You mentioned just on You just mentioned that there's this whole like need to understand things. I mean, we built this thing with Bolt that helps people understand when they're, runs on mobile as well. But like if you're trying to understand what is the difference between like a few of these things or like terms, or like you want to paste in an article here and just get a simple explanation.
Recommend checking this out. It's very cool what
So you've got you can ask a question here like, what is zero knowledge proofs? I don't know. Explain it to me like I'm 5. That's the first one. Like having AI, which is a great translator, just being able to do something quickly like this. So ELI 5, which is, you should put on all articles, all videos and stuff like that. And we're doing it more and more. It tells you, in a very simple explanation here, what this thing is about. I don't have voice activated on this, but you can have it read to you. If you want to level up, okay, let's go to a bit more of a beginner. So not just like I'm 5 years old, but like more a beginner one. There should be no more excuses as to not understanding stuff, because we've got these great translation tools. Now, the key for this is like making it easy for people to use. Like, okay, some people might be, it's difficult to like add text in, copy paste. If that's difficult, I think, there's other problems out there. But the thing is,
I need an agent for that.
Yeah.
I don't want to press Control C. What the?
Why don't you just reading my mind? I was thinking about this, and I haven't done too much yet, but I don't see a reason why you wouldn't have a tool where you tell it, okay, my job is senior marketer. Great. My task is this. Great. And then it tells you, do you want to do this or this? No, I don't want to do that. Give me another set of choices. Do you want to do this or this? Oh yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then based on your selections, like a choose your own adventure book, but you're doing nothing more than just clicking buttons, and the AI is just going, okay, well, I've got these other ideas for you. Having stuff like that, I think, is going to be really interesting. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, folks. But these are the kind of things that you can do just tinkering around and playing.
Do we have time for one more question? I think I'm gonna ask it for you just because it does interest me. Arturo was in New York.
Yeah.
What were some of the insights that he pulled from that? Because it does touch on this adoption piece a little bit.
Yeah, but it's more for blockchain adoption though. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
You had it under the AI question.
Did I?
You had, this is what we were talking about, adoption. You had insight.
Yeah, it's under blockchain.
No, blockchain's done this one.
Blockchain.
I read ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just skip it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't flow.
Yeah.
Like just listening to what we said.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't really flow. We need to just wrap up.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Really cool, man. Some really interesting stuff that's been coming out of the market.
Yeah.
Some fun things. I think the theme that we've had here is that all these new tools are creating these really exciting new experiences for the mass that just are more fun and make more sense. This is the output.
Yeah, this is the output.
This is the sort of outro piece, because I think this is cool.
It's done.
Subbed it into Cline.
It's funny though, because it hit its maximum requests right at the end. Because usually what you'd see with Cline here on the left-hand side, folks, is of my screen, is you would see that it, let's pause now, but it would come up with a summary output in green. If you're not colorblind, it's in green.
Yep.
That'll tell you that I've done all these things. Look, it's opening up localhost. It's opening up basically this page here. And when I click on the arbitrage, because I asked it just for the difference in Bitcoin price on two different exchanges.
Look how much more detailed it was from that first iteration that you showed of it. It's awesome. It's like it filled it in from where we saw the first step when before you can continue down.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this is like the first output that you see. The one that we showed before, that was just what Bolt had.
So no, you had a first step you showed before where it only had like one query input. But now it's got like 4 columns and a bunch of data.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. What are you talking?
Keep going.
What are you talking about? There was nothing that this showed.
You'd put something in from Bolt before that you.
I'm like, this is not Bolt.
I know.
Yeah.
But like you took a half midpoint into Bolt, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, because I showed how Bolt would build something.
But using the same query.
Same query.
So look how much more of an update it is into Cline when you've used Cline.
Right.
Because it's taken like.
I thought you were saying what I first did with Cline. I'm like, this is literally the only output the Cline has produced.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like how much more advanced it is from what you.
Right.
I'm going to say the question again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, do it again.
Look how I love how much more advanced that the output of Cline has, because you used Alt before.
Yeah.
And I love that there's just so much more information, so much rich as you've taken these extra steps in Cline to get to this point.
Yeah, exactly. Like Bolt will do, as simply as it can or as complex as Bolt can, but with you could argue that it's got quite a bit more features here.
So cool.
And it still has the same kind of pricing thing because this is just a price comparison tool. But the point is that it adds all this extra stuff that it thinks is useful, and it's built in a way that you can control a lot more if you're a developer. So going back to your point before, Manus being much more for the project manager, the non-dev kind of person. Then
I'd almost say general users.
General users is absolutely the mainstream, like because developers would definitely not be mainstream, but yeah, you'd be able to see, okay, so it can see what's on the page here. It's doing some further stuff as it finishes up, but pretty successful, I think.
It's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Nice one.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, folks.
Thanks everyone for listening. Yeah, we're back at it. Next week we're gonna have a guest with us.
A special guest.
Yes, pretty exciting.
Ed.
He'll join us. We'll talk in even more in depth around his experiences in the consultancy world and what he's building and integrating with his clients and customers alike.
Fantastic.
So until then, guys,
we'll see you there.
Stay smoky.
Bye.
All right. Quick intro.
Yeah, sure.
Worldwide, tech trends blazing, digital fire. AI, rising to the sky. Digital world, we reaching high.